Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Welcome back to VALORANT News. Drama today in Tarik's 10-man's Pro City situation that he sorted out over the last few days. Lots of pro players wanted to gatekeep a lot of tier 2 to tier 3 players because they don't feel like good enough, but other community members certainly want it to be wider spread than just that. Very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I'd greatly appreciate it. Plenty of updates to bring you guys as per usual. This is a funny video that NRG did right here with ShahZaM. Also, Team Deathmatch is going to become a thing. So these are the updates that Valorant to bring into episode 6. They're trying to bring in this premiere thing, which, look, I think that at some point or another, they might well intend to take over what Tarik is trying to do here and actually integrate it into the game. That would be the better system. Right now, ranked is an absolute disaster. We know that, for example, like FPL and stuff like this back in the CSGO days, they were trying to come up with a similar way to have pro players able to play outside of regular matchmaking, and we know that Radiant ranked is just an absolute disaster, not just because of the crypto throwing, but for various reasons. It's been a mess lately. So the pros wanted to do their own thing, and they're finding ways to do that. Tarik has set it up incredibly well, but still, I think at some point Riot might say, you know what, let's try and do this ourselves, and not exactly shut Tarik down, because I don't think that would be received very well by the community, but try and take what he's doing and actually integrate it into the game as it might be expected on like a Faceit or an ESEA platform that has been happening in Counter-Strike. The other thing they've got going on is Team Deathmatch they're adding into the game. This is kind of interesting that it's going to be a new mode in the game, but yeah, 5 versus 5, abilities enabled, first to 100 kills we believe. So that is what ValoLeak says here, that an ability enabled Team Deathmatch game mode, players will race to be the first team to 100 kills. So I mean, yeah, I think Team Deathmatch is a quality mode, to be honest. Kind of funny that they're going to bring it in here, but yeah, I guess that's what they're prioritizing rather than maybe some other problems that exist in the game as it stands. Also, some updates on the roster front here from Evil Geniuses, confirming Screwface, another member of their very substantial and extensive Valorant team. It's going to be a 10-man roster. I believe Screwface is the 9th man now on this team. There are some benefits to this, right? Having a massive roster outside of just your starting 5, because it enables you to practice setups and stuff against your effectively academy or second or backup team. Also gives you plenty of options for rotating players in and out. There's an argument to say they should have spent more money on some graphics for these announcements rather than actually spending all the money on the players themselves, but nonetheless relevant. Now also Jovi, right, former 100 Thieves analyst, is now going to join them as a coach for the team. So I think Potter must still be involved here as well. But those are the updates on the Evil Geniuses side for now. There's also this other was pretty funny going on at Cloud9. It's an absolute mess here. There was, people were even looking into all the stuff in the background of these images. It almost looks like there's some sort of like fabric washer in next to the telly, which is quite an interesting setup. Maybe it's not that at all. It's kind of small to actually see. And also this from the TSM side, stating there is again 7 players on the TSM Valorant roster. So many teams, of course, are bringing on additional players, either substitutes or whatever. We saw yesterday that Rossi kind of discussed that he got an offer from a tier 2 team, presumably. We thought, could it be FaZe? That's a rumor. Potentially it could be TSM as well. There's other options. We know that Sabrosa, for example, was kind of dropped from the TSM team, or he was, it's a weird one with Sabrosa because he made this tweet where he said, you know what, like TSM have allowed me to explore opportunities and I'll be doing that, but I'm still signed to TSM. Then he explored said opportunities, nothing really arose, and then TSM said, actually, yeah, Rosa, we're not keeping you, unlucky mate. I guess that was the situation. So maybe he expected to always have a spot on that team if he wanted it. Now it's not the case. He's taken this kind of content break, understandably. Maybe TSM and Sabrosa have said, you know what, bring me back at least as a substitute for the team, and then if things go wrong, you can bring me back through. Also, some scrimbucks from last night, probably the most useless scrimbucks we've seen so far, because we actually don't even know who they were playing here. We've got Sentinels are up 11-3 on somebody, but an entirely mystery team. So that's really all I can provide you for scrimbucks for today. Let's talk then about Pro City. So this started off with Tarik coming up with this great idea to try and find a way around the disaster that is ranked. The pro players want to play matches in their free time that aren't scrims, but they can't do it in ranked because it's an absolute disaster. The crypto throwing, plenty of other issues, people just running games down. They want to try and replicate like an FPL environment from Counter-Strike back in the day, where the top players get together, they form 10-man rosters or 10-man games where you get 5 pro players on one team, 5 pro players on the other team, randomly assigned effectively, or you just choose teams, and then you play a match as a result. Much more fun to watch and to play, I'm sure, than what ranked play currently is. So Tarik says that a lot of the struggle with the Pro City is maintaining the level of play, which means having a strict criteria and strong council. Sorry that I can't be inclusive to everyone, but it's the only way that it'll work. And this is the thing, right? Many players, even down in, Immortal and below, Ascended, I don't know, are like, look, get me in, I'm really good, I've proved myself, all this other stuff. Because understandably, right, every player wants to get in there, you get known by the pro players, like everyone in the entire world, at least if you're a semi-decent Valorant player, would love to be in Pro City and play with these guys. However, there's got to be some restrictions, some criteria, because, the level of play has to be maintained to make it work for everyone. Also, quite an interesting line, if Riot does ask us to stop, then it's totally out of my control. So I guess there's some concerns here that Riot might shut this whole operation down. What Tarik is, what he's organized here is it's like a Discord where all the pro players are in. There's moderators and there's all these guys that are helping actually orchestrate this, which is really well done. And, congratulations to Tarik for actually getting this to work successfully as it has done so far. Yes, there are problems. Yes, there are solutions that need to be come up with, but it's far more than Riot have done to address the issues that the pros have playing in Radiant Ranked. And that's the thing. If Riot shut Tarik's situation down here, like there's going to be a lot of backlash to it because, he's solving an actual problem. Why don't Riot come up with their own solution rather than, shutting down Tarik's solution here? So hopefully that doesn't happen. But as he goes on to say, I do understand that some existing players don't currently meet the criteria, but it's a work in progress. The council will have the final say. So the Jedi Council get to make the final call, and we'll see who that council might be here in a second. As Tarik actually replies with, best case scenario, Riot takes over, finds a way to actually integrate this type of system. For example, in Counter-Strike, Valve have never cared about this stuff, really. It's been Faceit, it's been ESEA. They've come up with their own systems to make this stuff happen and executed by, third-party situations. Riot always usually operate in a different way, so they would want to take control of that at some point if they actually want to. However, some pro players aren't happy with the current setup. They believe that many players that are effectively way too bad have been allowed into this, and it means that the matches they're getting formed have too much of a skill gap between the pro players and some players that might be tier 3, tier 4 that are allowed in here. Now, you've got to have enough players in to actually mean that forming 10-mans is actually viable, which it presently is. But zyppan has his own ideas, saying there should be different queues for tier 1 and tier 2. So he reckons that tier 1, now tier 1's always a little bit controversial in terms of what counts as tier 1, because he reckons tier 1 is franchise or challenger teams, which, in terms of how you would rank the teams, you'd say that tier 1 is the franchising and tier 2 is the challenger teams. But he reckons that the first queue should be all of those guys, or anyone previously on a top 10 NA team, or the top 3 Game Changers teams. Then tier 2, in terms of his queue, should be top 32 in open qualifiers or the LTQ, anyone previously on a top 30 NA team, top 10 Game Changers teams, and a lot of content creators. So I think it's an interesting idea. It's, obviously pretty difficult to split it up like that, but I think it's a valid discussion to have to ensure that the pro players, when they play 10s, they can actually play against, the better players in those 10-mans. But Tarik says that the point of this really is to try and create opportunity for players in tier 2 and below to play and learn from tier 1 players. So, which I think is a fair point as well. It does help the ecosystem in a way to allow players that are maybe talented but aren't so experienced with how to play Valorant on a high level to play with some of the pro players to get that experience. As he says, yeah, okay, splitting them up feels counterintuitive. Instead, the criteria to be involved needs to be enforced, but this skill gap is going to be there no matter what. And zyppan says, look, can get with this. My only gripe is that there's a bit too many people who don't fit the criteria already playing. Regardless, having 5 people actually communicating, even if there is a small skill gap, is way better than ranked play currently is. Tarik said, look, it's not perfect, but we're going to work on it, right? And Tarik actually gives some responses to this in a second, we'll see. But Leaf agrees, right? Guys, I don't want to hurt feelings, but if everyone gets invited to 10-mans, it's just glorified rank. So there are some benefits, right? People are actually going to communicate in this, but nonetheless, Leaf from Cloud9 does believe that there's many players getting invited that aren't, that haven't been justifiably invited. And even as Ethan says, FPL and Rank S was successful because there was a degree of gatekeeping going on and only the best got invited. But I like the idea of having a criteria because otherwise, if the pros decided between themselves, they might deliberately exclude players that are actually good enough, but maybe they think are cheating or all this type of stuff that sometimes us with these pros.
The qualification for GC players is that they had to have placed top 3 in one of the domestic events. So there's people in it that are outside of that criteria because just overlaps when I first made the ruling or criteria. So the people that have kind of got in at this point, I'm not going to remove them because I feel like since I already invited them and they're already here, that they should have a chance. So it'll just be like, if you're here now, then that's kind of your chance, because I don't want to just kick you out because you know, I kind of changed that ruling there. So that's kind of what it is. So like maybe their teammates might not be invited, but if the individual person is, then it's gonna stay, and then that person will just have a chance. So, but obviously, if someone's out of the ordinary, then you know, hopefully we can get it taken care of sooner. But I don't think there's no players that are like so out of the mix. But there's definitely some skill gaps, but that's how it's going to be no matter what.
So as Tarik said there, it's not going to be ideal, but he's doing his best to come up with an appropriate situation. And it seems the council is the one that makes the final call on this. So from nowadays, he's going to be like, okay, look, maybe his criteria initially wasn't so good. He's now tightened that criteria a little bit, but those who got invited are now going to be able to stay in there. But, you know, as he mentions here, this is on the 7th of January, but there's a 7-person council, which will have a non-biased opinion on picking off the reputation as a pro, but also off the application criteria that they deem to be acceptable. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Hayes is on this particular council, because as he even says, you know, don't feel bad. Because I think Tarik, you know, he's going to feel bad about kicking people out of his own league or not allowing players that might be very good into his league if they don't fit the criteria. And Hayes says, like, if you need to take someone out, or if you need someone to take the fall, just say, James said, that being Hayes, you're not allowed in, you do not meet the criteria. So maybe that's the way to go. But very much enjoyed your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you are new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.